All right, hello everybody in my Harvard A class for for Monday, October 19th, 2009. This is your teacher Daryl, and what we're going to do is we're going to talk about things related to the classroom, things that have to do with classroom, right? And we have here, I went over this in class. We have the ceiling, right? The ceiling, and every place has a ceiling, right? And then of course you have a board, right? You have what was called when I was a boy called a chalkboard or a blackboard, right? Blackboard uses a chalk and you go right with the chalk, and hands have powder and they have white powder on them, and it was very dirty, very messy, right? And then you would erase the board, and when you erase the board, you would pat, pat, pat on the board, and what would happen was it'd be like powder, and it'd be like, right? And it looked like smoke, but it wasn't. It was chalk. And we have playground. You go outside to play on the playground, right? You go on the swing, right? You do things on the playground, right? And many boys like to play soccer on the playground. Many boys like to play basketball on the playground. Girls usually, even in the USA, they like to go on a swing set. They like to go on a slide. They maybe like to jump rope, maybe things like that. And we have a shelf, right? Shelf. So we go say shelf. So we put books on the shelf, right? You can put many things on the shelf, right? You can put plates on a shelf. You can put candy on a shelf. But in the school, you put usually books on a shelf. You have a bookshelf. And what else we have here is a wall. What, right? Wall. You have walls in your house. You have walls in many different places, right? You have walls. Okay. And chalk. Chalk is long and usually white, and you people who do gymnastics, right, on the bars, they use chalk for their grip, right? So it's their hands are not too sticky, right? And you can go around and it's really nice. Okay, so the hands keep dry, they have a good grip, yet they can slide around very well, so they use chalk. And we have desk, 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 right? Desk, okay? And the desk is something you write on a desk. And then there's floor, right? In the USA, when you go into school, you go in with your shoes, right? In the USA, you wear your shoes and you walk on the floor with your shoes. In some places in Korea, especially if you go in the country in Korea, far away from Incheon, very far away from Incheon, far away from Seoul, what they do is, far away from Incheon and Seoul, what they do is they mm, have what's called slippers, right? You know, slippers, like shoes, uh, very light shoes that they wear, and they go in with slippers. They take off their shoes and they go in with slippers. And I'm sure maybe at your school sometimes it's like that too. At your school, you have to have separate shoes, right? Which is common. But in the United States, it's not as important. People still do take off their shoes when they go in the house. But when they go into a place like a restaurant or a school, no, never, never, never. Almost never. Okay, but what we're going to do is we have to talk about how we are going to say this. We want to talk about your classroom, right? And first of all, we want to know different things. We want to know Is there, right? Or are there? Is there is for one thing, are there is for two things, right? Okay? And usually, if I put an S at the end of a word, we're not talking about one thing. No, we're talking about two things. So, usually we have ceilings. Like for ceiling, what you want to say is, if you ask a question, right? You want to put the are or the is first. But for ceiling, you have to say, because it's only one thing. There's only one ceiling in a room, only one ceiling. So you say, is there a ceiling? Is there a ceiling in the classroom? So you usually say, yes, there is, right? Yes, there is. Okay, or there is a ceiling in the classroom. But you have to remember, in the question, right, is, are is first. But in the answer, the there is first, and is or are is second, right? We switch things around, right? Okay? We switch it around, we switch. So we say, is there or are there, right? But then in the question we say, there, you see the there goes like this. And we say, oh, there is, there are, right? Switch around, right? We switch, right? When we ask. When we answer the question, we switch, right? There is, right? Is there, are there? There is, there are, okay? Now, I'm going to ask, so we say, for instance, is there a ceiling, right? So we just say, is there a ceiling? Yes, there is a ceiling. Yes, there is, right? Yes, there is a ceiling. And we also want to go into a board, right? Board. We don't just say board. A board is anything in English. A board can be anything, so we have to say maybe whiteboard or chalkboard, right? Usually in one classroom there is one chalkboard, one blackboard, one whiteboard. So we usually have to say, is there a whiteboard in the classroom? Is there a whiteboard? And then we'll say, yes, yes there is. Yes, there is a whiteboard. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go on to the next thing. And we have playground. Playground. Usually in a school there's only one playground, right? So we usually say, is there a playground? Is there? For one playground, right? One playground. Is there a playground? Okay, but then we have, and the next one is shelf, right? Shelf. Usually in schools there's more than one bookshelf, so we can say, okay, is there a bookshelf? Or we say, are there bookshelves? Right? Bookshelves. And bookshelves is spelled differently. It's not just, with an S at the end of it. It's SHELVES. Bookshelves, right? Different spelling, totally different. Now, what we do, we have to ask about wall. Wall. Okay, in a school, usually in a classroom, in a school, there's usually 4 walls. Most rooms have 4 walls, right? Most rooms that you know of have 4 walls. So, if you just say, is there a wall? Is there a wall in the classroom? That doesn't sound right. So what you have to say is, is, are there walls in the classroom? Are there walls? Are there?